anywhere near there until the flux dries, because the flux will start to boil, and all of a sudden your solder is going to be popping like popcorn all over the place. So I'm drying my flux, drying my flux, drying my flux. Hello? This is not going on the Moodle site. Drying my flux, it's getting dry, you can see. Pretty soon it's going to be cloudy and powdery. Oops, did you see how it kind of boiled a little? All right, it's getting a little cloudy, and all right, the silver's turning brown. I'm going around and around. Ooh, it's melting. Ooh, it's melting. Ooh, it's melting. It's turning pink. I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to quench it. Flip my brick. Now, I want to make sure that this connected all the way around. Can you see what it looks like? This is what it looks like now. All right? It's really cool. The silver melted, and hopefully it ran all around the seam. So the only way I figured out how to do it is to kind of hold it up to the light and bend it back and see if you see any light. And I don't see any light. Wahoo! This was good. How much time do we have? We go till 1/4 after?
14, 15.
Great, I can keep on going. All right, so I've got my bezel wrap attached to the base. Now this is really, really critical. Do not put the stone in. Look. Don't put the stone in the bezel cup. 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 What will happen if you put the stone in the bezel cup? It'll get stuck because it's a perfect fit. You don't want to put the stone in the bezel cup, because when you go to do any more soldering, you'll burst your stone. So you have to trust that all the measurements you did before this work. Put your stone away. Everybody does it, but don't do it, okay? Because you'll be sorry. Should I try this? I think I'll try this because I think it's cool. All right, so what I need is something that's about the size of that base. This is a new addition to what we've been doing, and I think it's a good one. Would you get me the bolt cutter? Please, quickly. Thanks, sweetie.
No problem.
I'm going to do my best to cut the right size. Technically, you should do this with a saw, because the bolt cutter may squish the end. And it did, so I'm going to wait on this. But anyway, let's see what it would look like if I did do it. All right, once I stretched it out, I think it would look pretty cool around here. So I think I'm going to do it. But I'll do it after I do the ring shank, because I'm going to do the other one. All right, so now you've all chosen your ring shank. I am going to use that new Native American one that I got that I love. All right, so I'm going to cut my 3 inches. Are we working? You don't have 18 other projects to do? Oh, Okay, so you all have a 3-inch ring shank, except for those of you that are using the wire. Which maybe I'm going to show you that because you already know how to do this from when we made our resin rings. So I'm going to make, against my desires, I'm going to make a double ring shank because we have enough time. Let's see, what is this? I'll make it out of 12 gauge. 12 gauge or 14 gauge. I think I'll make it out of 12 gauge. All right, so I'm going to cut 6 inches, which is what you will all be given. You'll be given 6 inches. You'll cut it over there on the metal cutter. I'm just going to use the bolt cutter. If you could have the box in there that says swage block, please. Open up the cabinet above you. I'll fire your frame this weekend. Make sure it's in there, honey.
Yeah, it is. It's in the.
Thanks, sweetie. What, huh? It's not out, no. Okay, so you have a 6-inch piece. You're going to cut it in half. Now you have 2 3-inch pieces. What you need to do, if you can't do it with your fingers, you'll use a swage block. And the swage blocks are pretty simple to use. You would use the DAPs or whatever you have around to push it in. And you'll be doing this with your ring shank as well. A lot of the ring shanks are pretty stiff, so you'll want to anneal them first to get a round shape. See how I'm getting it round? And then I'm going to overlap it, put it on a mandrel. Get it round. And do the same thing with the other one. You guys okay over there? Okay. So I'm going to make it around. I'm going to overlap it. Okay. So I've got 2 rings, and I want to get them close to where I want them to fit. Of course, with my giant fingers, I'm not even close. Okay. So, I'm very close. So I'm going to solder these together. It doesn't have to be exact because you're going to refit them after you solder it together. I want this almost seam to be on the top. And what I need for this is 2 third hands that I will be, excuse me, I will be setting up on each side of the block. Now this is pretty critical. You want the third hands to open up sideways, because I know I explained this when we did our ring shanks, if you put it in with your ring shank the long way, when it heats up, it's going to squish your ring shank, okay? The heat will just melt it. So I'm going to put it in like this. This takes a couple of, I'll find probably the best third hands, because a lot of these tweezers have gotten destroyed by people using them incorrectly. But I don't know if you can see. Right now, I have the base of these 2 rings together. And I'm going to solder that base together. But we want the bases together, but then the ring shanks are going to come out on an angle to hold your stone. Okay, so I'm going to do that. And I'm going to put flux on it. And I'm going to use medium solder. I could use hard. Yeah, maybe I'll use hard. Because I'll use medium to close the top, and then we'll connect it to the bezel with easy. All right? How's this going? Everyone understand what I'm saying? Good. So I don't know where this is going to connect. So I've got 5 pieces of solder here. I'm just going to put a bunch of solder on the bottom and hope for the good connection. Oop. Well, I've really only got 2 pieces, but hopefully that will do it. Make sure they're together. Make sure they're pretty much even. Light my torch. And again, I don't want the solder to blow away, so I'm going to heat away from the solder. The hardest part on this part is to not bump into the third hands. This is It's really not that even, but hopefully it'll work.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Whoops, that's me. Well, what this actually goes to show you is you could make a ring in a period, which is pretty cool. All right, so the solder melted, hopefully made a connection. Now you can see that this one link, you also want to touch it carefully, make sure it's not too hot. That one link got very red and started to melt. As soon as you see the sterling get red, stop. All right? So I got it connected. I'm going to dry it off. Put it back on the ring mandrel and make them round again. Okay, now I've got it pretty close to where I want it. So now I need the mandrel with the tape on it. Did we get that one out? The mandrel with the tape on it? The flat side? We only have one flat-sided mandrel. Would you help get it? You just... Thank you. All right, see the blue tape? This is a round mandrel, but it's got a flat side. What we want to do is put our seam on that flat side because you need this flat surface to connect to your bezel. All right? And it also makes the ring slightly smaller because you're flattening it. So if you get it so perfect, you'll end up with it a little bit smaller. So before you get it perfect, make sure that, wow, my fingers need the whole 3 inches. Yeesh. All right, well actually that makes it easier. I can just pull it out. And just like with your links, you're going to solder these. You're going to put this upside down. Lean it on here, solder it with medium solder, perfect the shape, flatten the top, and then we make a connection to the bezel. When you want to connect your bezel to the ring shank, what you're going to do is clean this with steel wool. See, it's all, you can stick it in the pickle if you want, but we're going to clean this with steel wool. Put flux on it. Lots of pieces of easy, little pieces of easy solder. We did the sweat soldering when we did the copper ring. That's basically what you're going to do here. You're going to sweat the easy solder onto this. Once it's melted, you quench it. You're going to take your ring shank, get it perfect on top, just like you did with the copper, and you're going to go around and melt it, and voila. Your ring is put together. You'll clean it in the pickle. Then we'll put the stone in and hopefully it'll fit perfectly, and we use a burnisher to burnish around it. And then you can say, I made this. Thanks, guys. Perfect.